go back to your statement. You dropped off Caylee on June 9th, and walk me through. You dropped her off to go to work. Mm-hmm. Okay. Get off of work and go from there.
I got off of work, left Universal, driving back to pick up Caylee like a normal day, and I show up to the apartment, knock on the door, nobody answers. So I call Zenai's cell phone, and it's out of service. It says that the phone is no longer in service. Excuse me. So I sit down on the steps and wait for a little bit to see if maybe it was just a fluke, if something happened. And time passed. I didn't hear from anyone. No one showed up to the house. So I went over to J. Blanchard Park and checked a couple other places where maybe possibly they would have gone. A couple stores, just regular places that I know Zenaida shops at, and she's taken Caylee before.
We are taking your calls live. Over 600 pages of police investigation, witness statements, text messages, you name it, released. And they are stunning. Out to the lines, Mary in Florida. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Nancy.
What's your
I love
question,
your show.
dear? Thank you.
Can the fact that Casey did not bring clothes or toys for Caylee be used as proof of premeditation?
Absolutely. Let's unleash the lawyers. Eleanor Dixon, Richard Herman, Ray Giudice. Herman, you say there's not enough evidence to show a homicide. That's your opinion, but that evidence will definitely come into trial when a trial happens.
Yeah, it's going to come in, Nancy, but it's purely circumstantial.
So,
it's not enough.
You can stop right there, because a murder case can be made on circumstantial evidence. I don't have to have direct evidence. Why do you say purely circumstantial?
Because
like it's mud on the bottom of your shoe.
Like Ray Giudice instructed you earlier, that's just one piece of it. There's so many other elements that are missing for them to get a murder conviction.
Raymond Giudice did not mention anything about circumstantial versus direct evidence. And believe you me, Mr. Herman, I do not need a pack of defense attorneys to instruct me on anything. Eleanor, will it come into evidence or not?
Yes, it will, along with all the other pieces of evidence, which you can put together like a puzzle to see her guilt.
Ray, surely even you will have to acknowledge that circumstantial evidence can be as powerful, if not more so,
of course,
than direct.
In fact, sometimes the jury goes back and they feel so proud of themselves about putting this puzzle together.
As they should.
And a good prosecutor like Eleanor would do that. But the question was, is this evidence for premeditation to turn this into a capital case? And that's a very different question than what's been answered.
Well,
it will
I don't
come
know
into
about
evidence.
you, Ray, but I believe you're familiar with a little thing called the Internet.
I understand,
and
Nancy.
Those web searches for chloroform.
That's right.
And then chloroform found so thick in her car, even the air was saturated.
And when chloroform is linked to this little girl's death or disappearance, it may come into evidence, but that's not today.
Whenever this case goes to trial, I would, if I were a betting person, put money on the fact we will hear about chloroform. Out to the lines, Diane in Texas. Hi, Diane.
Hi. I appreciate your persistence and all you do for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is Casey's then boyfriend, Tony, still involved with Casey? I mean, he kind of just disappeared, no interviews or comments. And my second part, when Casey was in jail, she was always asking to talk to Tony. Was he ever approached by investigators to help get information from Casey, like befriend her?
Leonard Padilla, bounty hunter from Sacramento, California. What do we know?
Well, I can assure you that the law enforcement requested anybody to, go somewhat on the sly on their behalf, in other words, acting as their agents. I didn't see it except one time in those 600 pages, but I can assure you that...
What one time was that?
That's when they're asking one individual there if he possibly could come up with some information for them.
And, of course, Eleanor, unless the target is incarcerated, that's okay. But if you are incarcerated, the state cannot make a civilian a state agent and then go get information, or the target would be subject to Miranda rights every time they spoke.
That's exactly right, Nancy, and it would be entrapment as well, so you've got to be very careful with that. But the way she talks and the lies that she tells, she's going to dig her own grave.
You know, Mark Williams, what do you make of all the text messages about getting their nails done, about where they're going to party that night? Their big goal is to make out with a guy, and you put them together with those party pictures during the time Caylee is missing?
Well, what I think of is a very irresponsible mother. And of course, the 600 pages that came out today, it shows a pattern where the child was more, thought her mother was more of Cindy Anthony, Casey's mother, than really Casey. And there was this pull right there. They were really starting to bond big time. And Casey got very jealous over this. And you know, back in my day when I was dating a lot, we didn't have text messages. We called somebody on the phone.
To Dr. Patricia Saunders, clinical psychologist, there was an overwhelming tone throughout the pages, the 600 pages, about the anger and jealousy between Mom Casey and grandmother Cindy Anthony, and the target seemed to be Caylee.
It's not unusual that a child, a baby, is going to be the focus of rivalry, if not hatred, between mother and daughter. We know that Casey is, to say the least, a grossly immature person who is no way able to be a mother. Cindy was the mom. I don't think that the jealousy was two ways. I think it was on Casey's side.